Hello and welcome to the Starting Sisters series, the series where we go from your first purchase to your first 2,000 point army list and everything in between for the Adepta Sororitas, also known as the Sisters of Battle. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the different troop choices for the Sisters of Battle. However, before we do that, let's take a look at the new Combat Patrol box that is available for the Sisters of Battle. This Combat Patrol box is one that I was a little conflicted on, as initially when I was looking at it, the unit choices seemed a little bit strange, as they were remnant of the old introductory kit for the Sisters of Battle, and as such included a bunch of partial units that you could use but would be a little bit awkward on the battlefield. However, after doing an analysis in terms of what you get inside of the Combat Patrol box, I noticed that it's actually an insane value and probably one of the best Combat Patrol boxes out there, meaning that this is one of the few ones that you really want to take as much advantage of as you possibly can. So let's begin by looking at what you get in the Combat Patrol box for that $140 that you would spend on buying the specific starter kit. Well, the first things you get are a few complete kits versus the partial kits that you get. You get a kit of 10 Sisters of Battle, which would normally cost you $60. You also get a kit of 5 Seraphins, and while you can't build them into Zephyrim, that 5 Seraphim kit would run you $55 if bought individually. The Rhino kit is also another complete kit, and normally it would cost $60 to buy that Rhino. In addition to that, the Canoness is also a complete kit. Even though she is very easy to convert out of a basic sister, she's still something you get within the Combat Patrol box, and she would run you about $35 normally. This means that already in those full kits alone, you're getting a value of $210. So already we have quite a large savings, as you're essentially getting the Rhino and some other pieces for free, and even if you don't consider the cost of Canoness, you're still getting plenty of value. Now let's take a look at what partial kits you get within this kit, which is 3 Arcoflagellants, 1 Penitent Engine, and 4 Repentia, along with a Repentia Superior. Altogether, these partial kits would roughly come out to about $60, though it's rather hard to estimate the actual value of a partial kit, and in the case of something like the Penitent Engine, the Mortifier is usually the better choice. However, the Penitent Engine is fine as well, and you can probably build a Mortifier out of that Penitent Engine if you so desired, by finding a couple heavy bolters to kit bash onto the arms of that unit. Now, if we assume that $60 value for those partial kits, you end up with a total value of $270 for the low price tag of $140. This means you're pretty much at the point of getting double your money if you pick up this Combat Patrol kit, so it's something that I would really advise looking into, even if you already have a lot of these models, as you can get a lot of extra models and either sell them, trade them away, and give them to a gift as a friend, and keep the models you want for yourself because of how much stuff you're getting in this box. In fact, because of those partial kits and the great value of this Combat Patrol box, this is one of the few times that I would really say you probably want to buy 2 of these Combat Patrol boxes, as you can always find uses for 2 Rhinos and 20 Sisters of Battle, as well as 10 Seraphims and 2 Penitent Engines that you could always run as Mortifiers. In addition to that, you would essentially have a full unit of Repentia, as well as a decent unit of Arcoflagellants if you wish to run them. And with that being said, that kind of concludes the Combat Patrol box. I know it's kind of a really quick look at it, but there's very little to say other than it's an incredible value, and it's something that you should definitely consider picking up, regardless of where you are in building your army, just because of the value that it provides, and the fact that it has a great selection of different units that you'll find a use for at one point or another. Now that we've taken a look at the Combat Patrol box, let's move on to the troop choices for the Sisters of Battle. The primary troop choice for the Sisters of Battle is the Battle Sister Squad, and each of these sisters will cost you 11 points each, and each of these units consists of 5 to 20 models, with one of them being a Sister Superior. The basic Sisters of Battle were the only troop choice for a long time, and are still the primary troop choice for the Adepta Sororitas. But now the sisters have so many good options in all of their other unit slots, we're seeing more specialist attachments, although lists usually feature 1 to 3 basic sister squads, if not more within the list, just to fill out the ranks, because the basic sisters are a generally cheap unit that does have objectives secured and has a lot of great options that you can take on them. Looking at the stat profile of the basic Sisters of Battle, they actually have a reasonable profile with a 6-inch movement, a 4+ weapon skill, a 3+ ballistic skill, and a 3+ basic save, though like many forces within 40k, they only have a toughness of 3 and 1 wound. However, they do have Acts of Faith, Sacred Rites, and Shield of Faith, which gives them a little bit more survivability, thanks to all the special rules that they benefit from innately by being an Adepta Sororitas unit, as well as being a core choice that gives them even more access to different abilities. 4 different weapons, the Sisters of Battle are armed with a bolt pistol, a bolt gun, and frag and crack grenades. The nice thing about this armament is that the bolt gun is generally a decent enough weapon, and the bolt pistol does help them out in melee combat a little bit, as they only have a strength of 3 and 1 attack, except for the Superior, who has 2 attacks, meaning that they're not the best in close combat, though having a pistol weapon does give them a little ability to put up a bit more of a fight than they normally would have if they just used their basic melee attacks within close combat. Now what really makes the basic Sister Battle an interesting unit is that they have a variety of special weapons that they can carry into battle. In the event that you have a unit of 9 or less basic sisters, one of those Sisters of Battle can replace their bolt gun with 1 heavy weapon or 1 special weapon. However, once you get 10 or more sisters within a unit, for every 10 you can replace 1 bolt gun with a special weapon, and in addition to that, for every 10 you can replace 1 bolt gun with a heavy weapon or a special weapon. This means you can have a decent amount of special weapons in a squad of 20 sisters, but generally taking such a large squad becomes a little clunky in comparison to other options like Retributors or Dominions, which are more efficient with heavy and special weapons. So squads of 5 to 10 basic sisters is usually the easiest option and the most efficient for taking extra special weapons or extra heavy weapons on basic Sisters of Battle. Now that we know the arming potentials of the Sisters of Battle, let's take a look at some of the special weapons and heavy weapons that might be a good option for the Sisters of Battle units. For special weapons, generally the Melta gun is the most common option, especially paired with a combi Melta on the Sister Superior for maximum Melta potential on smaller squads of 5 to 10 sisters. Speaking of the Sister Superior, within the basic Sister squad, don't forget to take a chainsword on her, as it's a free bonus melee attack that for some reason isn't naturally included in her datasheet. I don't really know why, but it's something that you actually have to specify, and generally it's a very easy include even if you're not taking any other special weapons on her at this time. Another decent special weapon that you can take on the basic sisters is the Artificer Stonebolter, and this is generally something you take when you need a bit of a point filler, as you have a couple points left over in order to spend on war gear, and you don't really have anywhere else to spend it. But outside of burning a few last points within an army list, generally you want to leave the Artificer Stonebolter on something like the Dominions, who can carry quite a few of them and make the best use out of the Stratagem Blessed Bolts, which we'll cover in the fast attack video. Moving on from the special weapons, in terms of the heavy weapons, all 3 options being the Heavy Boulder, the Minestrone Heavy Flavor, wait, what did I just say? Sorry, I mean the Ministorum Heavy Flamer, and the Multi-Melta can have a place in the meta, and currently within the meta we're seeing the Multi-Melta the most in basic sister squads, as it's generally the strongest option in the sister's arsenal, but it is also the most expensive option, so it's something you don't just take without a plan or without consideration of the points that you'll be investing in that unit when you're taking something like the Multi-Melta. Also, do keep in mind that you do have access to the Retributors within the heavy support slot, which are some of the best units for carrying multi-meltas, though there are definitely times where you might forego Retributors and opt to take some multi-meltas on your basic sister squads instead, as you're either using other heavy support choices or simply want to spread out the multi-meltas more so you have a little bit more versatility with them. In addition to all those great weapons, the basic sister squad has 2 special war gear options, being the Simulacrum Imperialis, which now costs points again after costing 0 points for a small period of the 8th edition codex after one of the points update FAQs came out at the end of the 8th edition codex. And the Simulacrum Imperialis allows a unit carrying it to perform an act of faith even if other units have already done so in that phase. This is alright, but normally not something you include in a basic sister squad without good reason to include it, or if you have some extra points to spare, as normally the acts of faith are something you would reserve for more valuable squads, as miracle dice are a limited commodity that you want to utilize to their maximum potential and not just throw around willy-nilly. The other piece of unique war gear that the basic sisters have access to is the Incenser Cherub, and the Incenser Cherub is another point upgrade that can be taken as a one-of, and once per battle it can be consumed at the start of any phase to allow you to roll 2d6 and discard one of those d6 that you rolled. And the remaining d6 value can be used in place of a miracle dice for an act of faith until the end of the phase when the cherub dice is discarded, meaning that the phase in which you activate the cherub is the phase that you have to use it with or you end up losing it. This is kind of an expensive usage of points on a unit such as the basic Sisters of Battle, but there could be situations where you would want one of these, especially if you're including something like the Multi-Melta in that unit. Though generally, you're going to find better uses for those points, but there might be some situations where you end up wanting the Incenser Cherub in order to give yourself more ability to utilize miracle dice within different units of your army. Before we wrap up the basic Sisters of Battle, there are a couple of stratagems that we should take a look at, and the first of those stratagems is called Defenders of Faith. And what Defenders of Faith does is that at the end of your movement phase, if a squad of Battle Sisters are within range of an objective, you can spend 2 command points and they get the following 2 benefits until your next movement phase. The first benefit is that they double the shots of rapid-fire bolt weapons that the squad is equipped with. This means they double the shots of their bolt guns essentially, and their artificer-crafted stormbolters if they have any. This is definitely not the key part of the stratagem, especially when you consider that it costs 2 command points to utilize. what the key part of the stratagem is the second part, which says that each attack against this unit fails to wound on an unmodified roll of 1 to 3, irrespective of abilities of the weapon or model making the attack. This is a very powerful ability to have, as this can really compensate for that toughness of 3 that the basic Sisters of Battle normally have, making them an incredibly resilient unit, as 50% of your opponent's wound rolls will fail to actually wound them, regardless of the strength of their weapons, meaning that your sisters can hold that objective significantly well. And as we all know, 9th edition is a very objective-focused game, meaning this is an incredibly powerful stratagem to have in situations where you can make use of it, as this can essentially define the course of a game depending on when it is utilized. And the first part of that stratagem is just an extra perk to make up for that 2 command point cost that you're paying for the stratagem, as even as good as the stratagem is, 2 command points is kind of expensive even for this type of ability, considering an army like the Admech can get a very similar ability that isn't so heavily restricted in terms of when you can use it, and only cost them 1 warlord trait if they're in a specific forge world of Lucius. The second stratagem that we're going to look at is called Sacred Burden, and Sacred Burden says that the superior of the squad can carry a limited set of relics for the cost of 1 command point, and this must be used before the game begins. And this could be interesting with something like Litanies of Faith that allows you to reroll miracle dice, or Blessing of Sebastian Thor, which allows you to select 2 rights, and both those rights are active for the unit instead of the normal rights that you choose for your army. These are definitely a couple interesting options, but the real question is, how valuable are they on a unit of basic sisters, and how much do you really want them in your army? There may be some situations where you want these extra relics, and you're not taking them on other units, so you put them on a superior of a basic unit just to get them into your army list. Though that being said, I haven't seen too many people utilizing this on a squad of basic sisters, so that's something to keep in mind. And generally, you're going to want to use this if you're taking those large squads, so that you have a reasonably good buffer for the superior within that squad, because despite everything, the basic Sisters of Battle can be a little squishy at times. Anyway, to wrap up the basic Sisters of Battle, they're definitely an interesting unit that has a lot of options in terms of good special weapons and heavy weapons that they can take, making them very versatile and one of the better troop choices within the game. That's definitely a good thing, considering that for the longest time, and even at this point, they're basically the only troop choice that the Sisters of Battle have. As such, they do have to fill a lot of different roles in order to be considered good within the game. And as we've seen with many different tournament lists, they do everything from being a basic troop choice that has no special extra items and just acts as a filler, as well as one that carries some special weapons and one that carries some heavy weapons in order to do some serious damage to your opponents. For the longest time, the basic Sisters of Battle were the only troop choice within the forces of the Adepta Sororitas. However, they recently received a new troop choice from the Kill Team system that has made its way over to 40k, and this unit is called the Sisters Novitiate, and their stats are available on the Games Workshop website. Finally, with the introduction of this new unit, the Sisters have a second troop choice, but it's on one that can be taken exclusively, as it has the Sisters Novitiate ability. The Sisters Novitiate ability is akin to that of the Cultists or Poxwalkers within the Death Guard forces, and states your army cannot include more Sisters Novitiate units than Battle Sister squads, meaning you'll need to take 1 Sisters of Battle squad for each Novitiate squad, so you can't get away without taking Battle Sister squads as a troop choice just yet. So what do the Novitiates bring to the table? Well, a squad of Sisters Novitiates costs a total of 75 points and comes with 9 Novitiates and 1 Novitiate Superior. In terms of their stat line, they carry one similar to the Sisters of Battle, having a 6-inch movement speed, a 4+ weapon skill, a 3+ ballistic skill, and 1 wound with a toughness of 3. They do have a weaker save of 4+, though just like the Sisters of Battle, they have access to the Axe of Faith, Sacred Rights, and Shield of Faith, as well as being part of an order and having the core keyword, giving them access to all of those different benefits depending on which order you choose and how you utilize that core mechanic. As far as different weapons go, they begin with an auto gun, an auto pistol, and frag and crack grenades. The auto weapons are similar to that of the bolt weapons, but have a strength of 3 instead of 4, making them a rather weak counterpart in comparison. As far as special weapons go, they are much more limited than their sister counterpart, only being able to replace 2 auto guns with 1 Storm Flamer each for an additional cost of 5 points per flamer, which isn't the worst option, as they could be a cheap choice for flamer weapons in the Ebon Chalice order if you so desire. The superior of the squad can also be given a plasma pistol or a power sword for 5 points each, but it probably isn't the best idea unless you just have some points to burn, in which case I'd probably just give some more special gear to the basic sister squad if I'm going that far to burn some points. There's one other very important weapon that any novitiate can take in place of their autogun at no additional cost, being the novitiate melee weapon, which brings them up to 4 strength for their melee attacks and gives them 1 additional melee attack, making each novitiate have 2 attacks, with the novitiate superior having 3 melee attacks total. Combine this with the ability for one novitiate to take a sacred banner in place of their auto gun for 5 points, and that allows them to reroll the advance and charge roll for the unit, as well as them retaining their auto pistols, and they can rather quickly become a rather serious melee threat. On top of all of this, they have another very important ability called Impetuous Fervor, which states that each time their unit fights, if that unit successfully made a charge move this turn, it gains +1 attack to each model within that unit, giving them a total of 30 melee attacks on the charge. And do remember, because of that sacred banner, they can reroll the charge roll, as well as use Acts of Faith to automatically pass the charge roll if they so desire. And seeing as they can take a Simulacrum Imperialis, they can even use an Act of Faith in addition to other units having access to Acts of Faith as well within that same phase. The obvious combination for the novitiates is to take them in the order of the Bloody Rose to further their melee combat potential, but you can also take them alongside a Candace or a Palatine with the Rapturous Blows Blessing, seeing as the miraculous ability can allow them to generate quite a few additional mortal wounds due to the volume of attacks that they would be putting out with their melee weapons on the charge when in the order of the Bloody Rose. As a whole, the novitiates are an interesting choice that may encourage more Candace and Palatine play, as it's a unit of rather inexpensive models when it comes to points that can put out a surprising number of melee attacks. As a whole, I'm excited for this unit, and I think it's one that's going to be very interesting, though I don't know how viable it will be, so we'll have to wait and see, and only time will tell if they become a mainstay within Adepta Sororitas lists, or if they will simply sit on the sidelines while the sisters go more into specialist detachments, avoiding troops altogether in some situations. So let's pose a question to you guys listening. What do you think of the novitiates? Do you think they're going to take the battlefield by storm, or do you think they're going to end up sitting in the shelf, or do you think they'll just see some fringe play within some army lists, but otherwise not make a big impact within the meta? And as always, if you've enjoyed the content, like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel out. And if you get the opportunity, please do share the channel, as that not only massively helps the channel, but also helps the people who may discover it and benefit from the content. I would also like to give a quick shout out to my patrons. You guys are awesome people. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And regardless if you're a patron or not, thank you for watching and have a great day.